It was a night like any other, quiet, peaceful, and unassuming. The house hummed softly with the distant sound of the dishwasher, and the moonlight trickled through the curtains, casting gentle shadows on the walls. I had no idea that this night would change everything I thought I knew about my family and myself. My name is Peter. I'm 43 years old, a hard-working man who's built a simple yet happy life with my wife, Laura. We've been together for 18 years, weathering life's ups and downs as partners, as friends, and as parents. We have two wonderful children, Clara, who's off at college now, and Ethan, our 19-year-old son who still lives at home while attending community college. Ethan has always been a quiet soul, reserved and thoughtful. Where Clara was a whirlwind of energy and excitement, Ethan preferred the quiet corners of life. He spent his time buried in books, working on his latest creative project, or exploring the digital worlds he built on his computer. I sometimes worried that he felt overshadowed by his sister's vibrant personality, but whenever I asked him about it, he would give me that soft, reassuring smile and say he was fine. But lately I had noticed something different about him, something unspoken. He seemed more distant than usual, his smiles more fleeting, and his eyes held a quiet sadness I couldn't quite understand. I chalked it up to the usual struggles of teenage years, figuring he'd open up when he was ready. Laura was out of town on one of her frequent work trips, leaving Ethan and me alone in the house. I enjoyed these father-son moments, even if they were mostly spent in companionable silence. That night we had dinner together, but Ethan barely touched his food. He answered my questions about school with short, polite replies, his eyes flickering to mine and then away. I could tell something was weighing on him. After dinner, he retreated to his room like he always did. I watched TV for a while, but my mind kept drifting to him. I felt this pull, this instinct that something was wrong. I decided to check on him. When I knocked softly on his door and stepped inside, I found him sitting on his bed, his head down, shoulders tense. He looked up at me with eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 unspoken words. "Dad, I need to tell you something," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. My heart tightened. I sat beside him, giving him the space to find his words. And then he told me his truth. He told me that he'd been hiding a part of himself for so long, that he was gay. His voice trembled, his hands shook, and his eyes filled with tears, fearing what I might say. He admitted that he'd been afraid of disappointing me, of losing the relationship we shared. He had hidden his feelings and his identity, pretending to be someone he wasn't, just to feel accepted. I felt my throat tighten. My mind raced, not out of anger or disappointment, but out of sadness. Sadness that my son had carried this weight alone for so long, thinking I wouldn't love him if I knew. I took his hand, squeezing it gently. "Ethan, nothing, and I mean nothing, could ever change how much I love you. You're my son. That's all that matters." His tears fell freely then, and so did mine. We sat there, holding on to each other, breaking down the walls that fear had built between us. In that moment I realized this wasn't just a confession. This was a new beginning, a chance for Ethan to finally live as his true self, without fear or shame. That night didn't break our family. It made us stronger. It wasn't the night I expected, but it was the night we both needed. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is be yourself. And the greatest thing a parent can do is love their child for exactly who they are. Our journey isn't over. There are still challenges ahead, but we'll face them together, as a family. Because love doesn't falter. Love endures. And my love for my son is unconditional, unbreakable, and everlasting. The morning after Ethan's heartfelt confession felt different, lighter somehow, as if the weight that had lingered in our house for so long had finally lifted. I woke up feeling a mixture of emotions. Relief that my son finally felt safe enough to share his truth, and a deep determination to make sure he never regretted it. When I stepped into the kitchen, Ethan was already up, poking around the fridge for breakfast. He glanced at me nervously, like he wasn't sure where we stood after last night. I offered him a warm smile, hoping to wash away his doubts. "Good morning, bud," I said softly. "Sleep okay?" He nodded, his eyes searching mine for reassurance. "Yeah, better than I have in a while." I felt a lump in my throat again, the realization of how long he must have been suffering in silence made my heart ache. I walked over, ruffled his hair playfully, and grabbed the pancake mix from the cupboard. "Pancakes sound good? Let's make breakfast together." The tension began to ease. We talked about little things, his classes, his latest project, and even joked about how neither of us could flip a pancake without making a mess. It felt normal. More normal than things had felt in months. Later that day, I found myself thinking about Laura. She was due back home that evening, and I wasn't sure how to handle telling her. I wasn't worried she wouldn't accept Ethan. Laura loved him fiercely, but I wanted to make sure Ethan felt safe and supported no matter what. I sat down next to him on the couch, where he was lazily scrolling through his phone. "Ethan, your mom's coming home tonight. Do you want to tell her, or would you rather I do it?" He hesitated, biting his lip. I think I want to tell her. But can you be there with me?" "Of course, kiddo. I'll be right beside you." When Laura finally walked through the door, tired but happy to be home, Ethan looked more nervous than I'd ever seen him. She barely got a chance to put her bags down before he spoke. "Mom, can we talk?" His voice was trembling. Laura's eyes flicked to me, sensing the weight in the air. "Of course, sweetheart. What's going on?" Ethan took a deep breath, and before I could blink, the words came spilling out. He told her everything, his feelings, his fear, how he'd been scared to let us down. His voice cracked halfway through, and Laura's eyes filled with tears. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of love. She pulled him into her arms without hesitation. "Oh, honey, I love you. Nothing changes that. You're my son, and I'm so proud of you. Thank you for telling me." Ethan broke down completely then, sobbing into her shoulder. And I'll admit it, I couldn't hold back my tears either. We stood there, the three of us, holding on to each other tightly. It wasn't sadness, it was healing. That night we talked more than we had in years. We talked about his future, his dreams, and his fears. Laura and I reassured him over and over again that he wasn't alone, that he would never be alone. Our family wasn't broken. It was stronger than ever. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where Ethan could finally be his true self, and we could be the kind of parents he deserved. No more secrets, no more fear, just love. Because, in the end, love is what makes a family whole. And our love for Ethan, It's infinite, unbreakable, and everlasting. The days after Ethan's brave confession were filled with a strange sense of peace, the kind you feel after a storm has passed, leaving the air fresh and the skies clear. Our family felt closer than ever. There was no more pretending, no more hiding. Just honesty, love, and a new kind of strength I didn't know we had. Laura and I made it a point to check in with Ethan more often, not in a way that smothered him, but to let him know we were truly present, emotionally and mentally, not just physically. I noticed a change in him too. He smiled more, laughed more. The quiet, reserved boy who kept his head down now seemed lighter, freer. One evening, about a week later, Ethan surprised me again. "Dad," he said hesitantly, "there's someone I want you and Mom to meet." My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't sure if it was from excitement or nerves. "You mean, like a friend?" I asked carefully, though I had a feeling I knew where this was going. Ethan's cheeks flushed. "Yeah, more than a friend, actually." Laura was just walking in from the kitchen, and I saw her smile widen. "Oh, sweetheart, of course. When do we get to meet him?" Ethan let out a breath he'd probably been holding for days. "Tomorrow night, if that's okay." It was more than okay. We wanted nothing more than to show him, and whoever was important to him, that we supported him, no matter what. The next evening I found myself a little more nervous than I expected. I wasn't sure why. Maybe I just wanted everything to go perfectly for Ethan. Laura, of course, kept me grounded. "Relax, Peter," she teased as I straightened the pillows on the couch for the third time. "It's a dinner, not a royal visit." When the doorbell rang, Ethan practically jumped off the couch to get it. A moment later, he walked in with a boy his age, tall and slim with an easy smile. "Mom, Dad," Ethan said, his voice steady but his eyes watching our reactions carefully. "This is Ryan." Ryan held out his hand politely. "It's really nice to meet you both." Laura stepped forward first, wrapping him in a quick, warm hug, because of course she did. "We're so happy to meet you too, Ryan." I shook his hand and smiled. "Welcome to the madhouse. Hope you're hungry." The dinner was filled with easy conversation and laughter. Ryan fit in naturally, and I could see how happy he made Ethan. That was all I needed to know. Later that night, as Laura and I cleaned up the dishes, Ethan walked over to me. He didn't say anything at first. He just hugged me, tight and long. "Thanks, Dad," he whispered, "for everything." My throat tightened. I hugged him back just as tightly. "No, kiddo," I said softly. "Thank you for trusting me with who you really are." Our family wasn't just strong now, we were unbreakable. And Ethan, he wasn't just living, he was finally thriving. Love had won, and I couldn't have been prouder. Weeks passed after meeting Ryan, and life began to settle into a new, warmer rhythm. The walls that once held unspoken words and hidden truths had crumbled, leaving nothing but openness and understanding. It felt like our family was finally breathing fresh air. Ethan seemed happier than ever. His laughter echoed through the house more often, and his once quiet demeanor now held a quiet confidence. Laura and I couldn't have been prouder. One evening, Ethan sat me down. I could tell something was on his mind. "Dad, Ryan's been thinking about transferring to a university out of state. He asked me to come with him." His voice was steady, but his eyes flickered with uncertainty. "I want to go, but I don't want to leave you and Mom." The realization hit me hard. My boy was growing up, making his own path. But the fear in his eyes wasn't about leaving. It was about disappointing us. "Ethan," I said gently, You've spent so long hiding who you are. Now that you've found your happiness, don't hold back. Your mom and I will always be here, no matter where you go." His eyes welled with tears. "You really mean that?" I nodded. "Of course, son. Love isn't about keeping you close. It's about letting you soar." The day Ethan left for his new journey with Ryan was bittersweet. Laura and I stood by the door, waving as they drove off. There were tears, but they weren't from sadness. They were from pride. Pride in the brave, compassionate young man our son had become. In the quiet that followed, Laura slipped her hand into mine. "We did good, didn't we?" she whispered. I smiled, feeling the weight of all we'd been through lift. "Yeah," I murmured. "We did." Our home wasn't emptier, it was fuller than ever. Full of memories, love, and the knowledge that we raised a son who wasn't afraid to be himself. Because, in the end, that's what every parent wants, for their child to find happiness, love, and a life they're proud to live. And Ethan? He found all three. Our journey wasn't just his, it was ours too, a journey of acceptance, courage, and unconditional love. And no matter where life takes him, he'll always carry a piece of home in his heart. Because love, true love, never fades. It only grows stronger. Months passed and the seasons shifted. Though the house felt quieter without Ethan's daily presence, it was never empty. Our hearts remained full, knowing he was out there living his truth, chasing his dreams alongside Ryan. Ethan would call often, his voice filled with excitement about his classes, his new city, and most importantly, how happy he was. Laura and I hung on to every word, feeling comfort in his joy. One evening, just as autumn leaves began to fall, the phone rang. It was Ethan. "Hey, Dad," he started, his voice warm but nervous. "I was wondering, would you and Mom come visit for a weekend? Ryan and I have something important to tell you." Laura and I exchanged curious glances. We agreed immediately. Of course we would go. When we arrived, Ethan and Ryan greeted us with wide smiles and tight hugs. Their apartment was small but cozy, filled with the kind of warmth only a loving home could hold. Pictures of the two of them lined the shelves, alongside a framed photo of the three of us from our last family vacation. Seeing that picture there made my throat tighten with emotion. After dinner, Ethan took a deep breath and glanced at Ryan before speaking. "Mom? Dad," he began, his voice steady but filled with anticipation. "Ryan and we're engaged." For a moment, the world stopped. My heart swelled, not from surprise, but from an overwhelming rush of joy and pride. I looked at Laura. Her eyes were already brimming with happy tears. I stood up first, crossing the room to pull them both into a hug. "Congratulations, son. I'm so proud of you. Both of you." Laura followed quickly, wrapping them in her arms. "You're going to have such a beautiful life together. We're so happy for you." The evening was filled with laughter, happy tears, and endless plans for the future. We talked about the wedding, about what they envisioned, and Ethan made one more request that broke me in the best way possible. "Dad," he said softly, "I want you to be my best man. You've been my hero through all of this. I wouldn't be here without you." I couldn't stop the tears then. I hugged him tighter than ever. "It would be an honor, son." Our journey as a family wasn't easy. It was filled with fear, pain, and uncertainty. But love saw us through. Ethan's courage to embrace his truth brought us closer than I ever thought possible. And now, as he stood on the brink of a new life with Ryan, our family wasn't just whole, it was thriving. Love had won. Again and again. And I knew, deep in my heart, that it always would. The weeks after Ethan and Ryan's engagement announcement felt like a dream. Laura and I were swept into the excitement of wedding planning, and Ethan's happiness was contagious. We talked on the phone nearly every day, sharing ideas, laughing about the smallest things, and imagining the beautiful day they were creating together. One evening, as Laura and I sat on the porch watching the sunset, she sighed softly, leaning her head on my shoulder. "It's all happening so fast," she whispered. "It feels like just yesterday we were teaching him how to ride a bike. Now he's getting married." I nodded, my throat tight with emotion. "Yeah, but look at him. He's happier than I ever imagined. We did good." The wedding date was set for late spring. Ethan wanted a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. The venue was a cozy garden nestled in the countryside, a place that felt like a fairy tale. Flowers lined the aisle and twinkling lights hung from the trees, casting a warm glow as the sun set. When the day finally arrived, Laura and I stood in the front row, watching our son. He looked more radiant than I'd ever seen him, confident, proud, and completely in love. Ryan looked at him the same way, like the world began and ended with Ethan. When it was time for the vows, Ethan's voice trembled with emotion. "Ryan, you taught me what it means to love without fear. You showed me that I'm worthy of happiness, of being seen and loved for who I am. You've given me the courage to be myself, and I promise to spend the rest of my life showing you that same love, that same unwavering support. You're my home. You always will be." Ryan's voice was thick with tears as he spoke. "Ethan, from the moment I met you, I knew you were something special. You've filled my life with laughter, hope, and more love than I ever thought possible. I promise to stand by your side through every storm and every sunrise. You're my heart, Ethan, and you always will be." There wasn't a dry eye in the garden, least of all mine. When they kissed, the crowd erupted in cheers, and I felt Laura squeeze my hand. "We did good," she whispered again, her voice shaking. "Yeah," I murmured back, my heart full. "We really did." The reception was a blur of laughter and joy. Laura and I danced under the stars, watching our son dance with his new husband. I couldn't stop smiling, knowing that Ethan wasn't just happy. He was free. He had found a love that would stand the test of time. Toward the end of the night, Ethan found me by the edge of the garden, where I was watching the lights flicker in the trees. "Dad," he said softly, "can we talk?" I turned to him, surprised by the serious look on his face. "Of course, son. What's on your mind?" He swallowed hard, his voice trembling. I need to say thank you. For everything. For standing by me when I didn't even know how to stand by myself. I don't know where I'd be without you and Mom. You never made me feel ashamed or broken. You made me feel loved, and I'll never forget that." My throat tightened. I pulled him into a tight hug, holding him like I did when he was little. "Ethan," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion, "you were never broken. You were always enough, and I'm so damn proud of you. I always will be." The moon hung high overhead, casting a silver glow over the garden. In that moment, I realized something profound. This wasn't just Ethan's journey. It was mine, too. He taught me how to love better, how to be stronger, how to see the world through a kinder lens. Our story wasn't just about a son finding his truth. It was about a family becoming unbreakable. And as I watched him laugh with Ryan, his eyes shining with joy, I knew our journey was far from over. It was just the beginning, because love doesn't end. It grows, it deepens, and it carries us through, no matter what.